Okay, so you want to own a foundation repair company. A homeowner finds a crack cutting across the wall, a bedroom door that will not close, and a floor that feels just slightly lower on one side. They call your company. One of your inspectors arrives with measuring equipment, walks through the house, studies the outside drainage, and eventually places a proposal on the kitchen table. The number can be large, sometimes very large. From the outside, this looks like an unusually attractive contracting business. The customer is worried about the most expensive thing they own. The work cannot be shipped overseas. A search result, a truck, an inspection, a crew, a few days of digging, and the company collects a 5-figure payment. That is the fantasy. The problem is that the most expensive mistake on this job may happen before anyone touches the ground. The company has to decide what is moving, why it is moving, how much support it needs, what the work will cost, and what it is willing to promise afterward, all while the most important physical conditions remain hidden beneath an occupied house. If that first decision is right, the job can support a healthy business. If it is wrong, the company may not discover the real price until the crew has opened the yard, the schedule is already full, and the homeowner is standing beside the excavation, asking why the plan has changed. And even then, the story may not be over. Take one illustrative job, not a claim about every house, just a normal way to see where the economics hide. The homeowner notices a crack in a sticking door. The company books a free inspection. The inspector arrives, takes elevation measurements across the floor, looks at where the symptoms appear, studies drainage around the house, and asks when the changes began. The crack is the reason the phone rang. It is not the answer. In areas with expansive soil, the ground can swell as it absorbs moisture and shrink as it dries. If that moisture changes unevenly, one part of a foundation can move differently from another. That can produce cracks, sloping floors, gaps around windows, or doors that no longer fit their frames. But movement does not automatically mean failure. Some movement can be normal for the age, design, and location of the structure. A crack can be old, cosmetic, active, related to drainage, connected to a plumbing issue, or part of a wider pattern. Two houses can show almost the same line across a wall and justify completely different recommendations. This is why the inspector is not simply counting damage. They are forming an opinion about something they cannot fully see. That opinion may lead to monitoring, drainage work, another professional evaluation, a limited repair, or a major structural scope. In some places and for some jobs, engineering, plans, permits, or municipal inspections may enter the process. The exact requirements vary, which means a company crossing several city lines can be operating under several different sets of rules without changing the logo on the truck. Now look at the economics of that first visit. The homeowner often pays nothing. The company pays for the call handler, the scheduling system, the vehicle, the fuel, the inspector's time, the measuring equipment, the explanation, and the follow-up before it knows whether the house needs work or whether the customer can buy it. Picture one inspector's day. The first appointment cancels after the truck is already on the road. The second house has visible symptoms, but the measurements do not support a major structural sale. The third lead sits far outside the company's efficient service area. The fourth house has a real problem and a homeowner ready to act. Only one visit becomes revenue. All four use capacity. That is why a high contract price does not make lead quality irrelevant. A weak lead can occupy one of the most valuable people in the company for hours. It can push a better appointment into another day. It can add miles to the truck, delay the next inspection, and still produce nothing but a polite conversation at the front door. The company's first product is not steel beneath a house. It is a judgment about whether steel belongs there at all. That creates a conflict the owner cannot pretend away. The inspector is expected to be accurate, calm, and honest. The inspector is also part of the sales system. The customer does not know how to interpret every elevation reading or soil condition. They know the house feels wrong, the repair may be expensive, and the person explaining the danger may benefit if the company wins the job. A weak company responds by making the sale more certain than the evidence. A strong company has to be willing to leave without one. That restraint can look expensive in the moment. The truck made the trip, the inspector spent the time, the lead cost money. But selling a large structural scope that the evidence does not support is not delayed revenue. It is a future dispute being created at the kitchen table. Now assume the representative house does need substantial work. The proposal may show several support locations along one side of the foundation. Consumer-facing estimates for installed pier work vary enormously because the category includes different systems, soil conditions, access problems, depths, regions, structures, and restoration needs. Using current published ranges, 8 support locations alone can produce a consumer price somewhere around $11,000 to $26,000 before other project-specific work is added. That range does not reveal the contractor's margin. It reveals how little the phrase foundation repair tells you by itself. The homeowner still has to pay for it, and this is where the sale becomes more emotionally difficult than the clean number on the proposal suggests. Foundation settling, earth movement, deterioration in ordinary wear are commonly excluded or limited under standard homeowners policies, although the actual result depends on the cause and the policy. A sudden covered event can be treated differently. But many customers are not waiting for an insurer to quietly cover the bill. They are looking at their own savings. A person who did not plan to spend $20,000 on the house now has to decide whether the problem is real, whether the recommendation is trustworthy, whether it can wait, and whether the family can absorb the cost. The contractor is not only competing against another contractor, the contractor is competing against denial, delay, and the possibility that the customer simply cannot afford to say yes. This is why financing can sit inside the revenue system of the company. Some large operators advertise long-term plans through third-party lenders. The exact rate, approval, total cost, and promotional conditions matter. But the decision changes when a large structural bill becomes a monthly payment. Take a $20,000 project under one currently advertised 10-year plan at roughly 10%. Using the published payment factor, the monthly payment lands near $264. The repair did not become cheaper. The customer's frame changed. For the contractor, financing can move more jobs from the kitchen table into the production calendar. It can also make that calendar fill much faster than the company's crews can expand. That is the next trap. Sales capacity is easy to imagine growing. Buy more advertising, hire another inspector, offer financing, book more appointments. Production capacity grows, one trained crew at a time. That crew is more than a labor count on a spreadsheet. An experienced person has to read the scope and recognize when the house in front of them does not match it. The team still has to operate the equipment without damaging the structure, control the excavation, protect utilities and landscaping, record the installation, and explain to a nervous homeowner why the yard now looks very different from the photograph in the proposal. New workers can be hired. Reliable field judgment takes longer. That means the company cannot solve every capacity problem by adding bodies. A new crew without experienced supervision may increase the number of jobs started while increasing the number that come back. And because the work happens at customers' homes rather than inside one controlled facility, the owner cannot watch every decision from an office. The crew is where the company's promises become physical. It is also where weak training becomes visible. Every sold job needs workers, equipment, material, travel time, excavation time, supervision, documentation, and sometimes engineering or permits before the work can even begin. A company can add leads in a week. It cannot create an experienced crew in a week. So a signed contract is not money finished, it is a claim on future labor. That distinction is why a full calendar can be one of the most misleading pictures in the company. Imagine 5 job cards spread across a production board. One customer has signed, but the financing has not funded. Another job is waiting on a permit or engineering document. A third is ready, but the crew assigned to it is still trapped on yesterday's excavation. A fourth can begin, but rain has made the site difficult to open safely. The fifth is not new work at all. It is an old warranty visit that now has to fit between paying jobs. On paper, every day is occupied. In the bank account, those days are not equal. Payment arrangements vary. A company may collect a deposit, use staged funding, receive lender proceeds after customer authorization, or collect a balance after completion. What matters is the gap between when the company commits resources and when the money becomes available. Payroll does not wait for the lender. Vehicle payments do not pause for a permit. The warehouse still costs money while a crew sits on a site that was supposed to be finished yesterday. This is how a company can appear busy while becoming financially uncomfortable. Signed work creates confidence because it looks like future revenue. But some signed jobs arrive slowly, some cost more to deliver than expected, and some bring old obligations with them before the new payment is collected. A backlog is valuable only when the work inside it can be started, completed, documented, and paid under the assumptions used when it was sold. Otherwise, the calendar is not showing future income, it is showing a line of promises waiting for labor. The representative job enters the backlog, the customer is given a date, utility markings are arranged, materials are prepared. The crew arrives and protects the work area. On the proposal, the support locations appear as clean symbols along the side of the house. Then the digging begins. The ground does not read proposals. The crew may find tighter access than expected, buried obstructions, water where the excavation needs to remain stable, a structural detail that was not visible during the inspection, or a condition that requires the job to pause for review. The exact response depends on the contract, local rules, documentation, and what was actually found. Sometimes a legitimate change becomes additional paid work. Sometimes the company absorbs it. Sometimes the customer hears that the job they believed was settled now needs another decision. This is where the contract price meets the physical house. A line can be added to a drawing in seconds. Making that line possible may take hours of labor, different equipment, more material, or a safer approach that changes the schedule. The estimator does not automatically receive a larger budget because the crew found a harder condition. The crew receives the original scope, the original price, and the original customer expectation. Now put rain in the forecast and 3 more jobs behind this one. The owner can feel the pressure immediately. Every extra hour on this house pushes another customer back. Equipment sits in one yard instead of moving to the next. A crew that was supposed to finish today may still be excavating tomorrow. The company has already sold the time twice. This is where bad economics can tempt bad conduct. The safe response is to stop, document the condition, explain what changed, and protect the workers and the structure. The dangerous response is to preserve the schedule by pretending the ground did not change the job. Foundation work can place workers in excavations beside existing footings, heavy components, utilities, unstable soil, water, and hydraulic equipment. OSHA treats trenching and excavation as major construction hazards. In one case, the agency cited a foundation contractor after workers entered deep, inadequately protected trenches and proposed nearly $200,000 in penalties. That case does not establish how often accidents happen across the industry. It establishes why the crew cannot be treated like an interchangeable expense. A trained worker needs to understand the equipment, the excavation, the structure, and the moment a difficult job becomes an unsafe one. Supervision costs money. Protective systems cost money. Stopping a job costs money. A collapse can cost a life. Any company that preserves margin by shifting danger onto workers is not running efficiently. It is hiding the bill in the one place it should never be allowed to go. Assume the representative job is handled correctly, the condition is documented, the crew finishes the installation safely, readings are recorded, the excavations are closed, the yard is restored, the homeowner makes the final payment, and the truck moves to the next address. This is the point where most people think the transaction ends. Now move forward several years. The original homeowner has sold the house. A new owner notices another crack and finds a warranty document in a folder left behind. They call the company whose name is printed across the top. The person answering that phone now has to reconstruct a job they never saw. Where were the original symptoms? What did the elevation readings show? Which areas were repaired? What system was installed? Were photographs taken? Did the contract promise stabilization of a defined area, an adjustment under certain conditions, or something broader? Is the new movement connected to the old work, outside the old scope, cosmetic, or evidence of an installation problem? The hole is gone, the file has to speak for it. Maybe the call becomes a routine inspection. Maybe the customer needs an explanation. Maybe another part of the house has moved. Maybe the system needs service. Maybe the original work was wrong. Without measurements, photographs, scope notes, and clear warranty terms, those possibilities become one argument with no reliable starting point. And now the hidden economics of the entire job finally appear. The company did not make one promise when it sold the repair. It made a sequence of promises to different people at different times. The call handler promised the problem would reach the right person. The inspector promised the scope matched the evidence. The crew promised the work in the ground matched the scope. The warranty promised the company could explain and support that work later. A failure in the last step can begin in the first one. The callback may arrive years after the payment, but the cost can trace back to the original inspection. A vague assurance at the kitchen table becomes a dispute. A missing measurement becomes an extra visit. An unsupported scope becomes a crew returning to work that never should have been sold that way. The revenue arrived in the past. The obligation stayed alive. This is why old jobs are not merely history when someone buys the company. They are part of the acquisition. A buyer may receive the brand, phone number, reviews, trucks, warehouse, equipment, trained employees, signed backlog, customer records, and supplier relationships. The buyer may also receive warranty files, unresolved complaints, incomplete documentation, and customers who expect the name on the truck to mean the promise still exists. The steal is visible on an inventory list. The judgment behind thousands of old decisions is not. In a small company, that judgment may live almost entirely inside the founder. The owner knows which symptoms deserve caution, which inspector tends to overreach, which crew can handle a difficult site, which old customer was promised an exception, and which warranty call needs a calm explanation instead of another repair. When every unusual problem reaches the same phone, the company can look larger than it really is. Take the founder away and the missing system appears. Inspectors make inconsistent recommendations. Production managers interpret scopes differently. Service decisions slow down. Customers ask for the one person who remembers what happened. The business still has equipment and employees. What it may not have is a reliable way to make the same decision twice. This is where the industry's consolidation becomes more than a financial headline. Groundworks expanded by acquiring regional foundation, waterproofing, crawl space, and concrete service businesses. By early 2021, the company said it had completed 18 acquisitions. In 2023, KKR made a significant investment. By February 2026, Groundworks reported more than 80 offices across 45 states and more than 1 million customers. One of the regional businesses it acquired had more than 300 employees and approximately $65 million in annual revenue. That is not a man with a pickup truck being absorbed into a distant corporation. It is already a substantial local operating system. Inspectors, crews, managers, equipment, customer records, service obligations, and a reputation tied to thousands of individual houses. So the acquisition question becomes much more interesting. What part of that system can another owner preserve? Those company-reported figures do not reveal private margins, acquisition prices, or whether every branch performs equally well. They do show that a deeply local trade can be built into a national platform. The interesting part is what does not become national. The soil remains local, the houses remain local, permits remain local, weather remains local. The inspector still has to stand inside one home, and the crew still has to open one patch of ground. What scales is the support around that moment. The call system, training, financing, procurement, documentation, product standards, review, the ability to keep an old warranty file usable after employees leave and houses change owners. A national platform does not eliminate the local judgment. It tries to keep that judgment from disappearing with one person. Now put the same representative house through two different companies. The first company is built to maximize signed work. The inspector feels pressure to make the problem sound certain. Financing gets the homeowner across the line. The job enters a calendar already packed beyond the crew's real capacity. When the excavation reveals a complication, the scope does not explain it. The owner makes a quick decision by phone. The crew finishes late. The documentation is thin because another job is waiting. Years later, the warranty call arrives. The original inspector is gone. The crew leader is gone. The owner remembers the house vaguely but cannot find the photographs. The new homeowner has a broad promise in writing and a fresh crack in the wall. The old sale becomes new labor. The second company may lose the sale at the first inspection. Its measurements may not support major work. It may recommend monitoring, drainage correction, or another professional evaluation instead. That truck still cost money. The inspector still spent the afternoon. No large contract enters the calendar. But when the company does sell a structural job, the scope includes clear limits. The production manager can understand it without calling the founder. The crew can stop when the physical condition no longer matches the plan. The file records what changed. The warranty says what the company can actually support later. This company may sign less work in a month. A larger share of that work survives the trip from inspection to excavation to payment to the future phone call. That is what makes the business valuable. Not the highest possible contract total. Not the fullest possible calendar. Not the largest number of trucks parked behind the warehouse. The valuable company is the one whose promises remain understandable after the salesperson leaves, executable after the crew arrives, and defensible after the house changes hands. Related services can strengthen that company. Drainage work, waterproofing, crawl space repair, wall support, concrete lifting, and other adjacent services can give the inspector more than one honest answer to the customer's problem. A house that does not need major underpinning may still need another legitimate correction. That can create additional revenue from the same local trust and the same lead system. But it also creates more ways to be wrong. A wider menu helps only when the company can diagnose, schedule, perform, document, and support each service. Otherwise, diversification becomes more promises entering the same weak handoffs. So does owning a foundation repair company work? It can work very well in the right market with real repair demand, qualified leads, disciplined inspections, trained crews, reliable documentation, honest financing, and warranty terms the company has the capacity to honor. The housing stock is old enough to keep producing repair questions. Nearly half of owner-occupied homes in the United States are at least 45 years old, and the work is local, difficult, and tied to an asset homeowners care deeply about. But the attraction of the trade is inseparable from its responsibility. You are being paid because the customer cannot see the ground, cannot easily judge the recommendation, and cannot afford for the work to be careless. That trust can create a durable local business. It can also let a weak company pull years of future trouble into one impressive sales month. Go back to the first crack. It gets the homeowner to make the call. The inspector turns it into a decision. The crew turns that decision into something buried beneath the house. The file determines whether the company can still explain that decision years later. The supports carry the structure. The quality of those connected decisions carries the company.